All right. Hey, great to have you on the show. Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it. We've talked about you a lot, a ton. Never had the chance to talk to you, so I'm honored. We're honored to have you on here. What are you doing nowadays? This time of year?
Well, we just returned from Paris a couple days ago, so sort of getting acclimated here back at the university. Got a lot of our college guys coming back into town, freshmen moving in next week, so a lot of preparation for just this new upcoming season and this preseason. Also just sort of doing a deep evaluation on Olympics and sort of putting some plans in place for this next Olympic cycle in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and since you bring it up, you have been coaching actually five Olympians that were there. So I want to ask you, and that includes Adam Kuhn, Mason Paris, Michik, Amin, and Austin Gomez. So congratulations! And I mean, what was that Olympic experience like for you?
It was, I thought it was an outstanding Olympics from a competition standpoint. It was, coming off Tokyo where there was, limited mobility, no fans with COVID. I mean, it was a much better experience overall. I'd say for the athletes, the coaches, the fans. I thought Paris did a nice job with that facility. I thought the fans were great. Um, we had actually four guys competing. Unfortunately, Micic had an injury leading up to the Olympics. So a couple of days before we actually got into the village, we got news that he would have to pull out and not be able to compete. So that was a little bit of a disappointing news we got regarding Stevan, and obviously we all felt really bad for him. The other four guys I thought competed really well, and it's Olympic Games, the best of the best, pouring their heart and soul into it, and putting it on the line. Unfortunately, I know our guys would have like to come out of there with a little more, but definitely super proud of the way they prepared, their effort, the way they competed there, and the way they represented our program.
Yeah, yeah, a lot to be proud of. Sean, I have Kevin on the line here as well, and I'm going to throw it to him because I know he has a question kind of regarding your freestyle coaching background. But I personally had the opportunity to interview Mason Paris when I was at Olympic Training Week here, and I tell you, he was a great guy. I really enjoyed getting to know him. Obviously, didn't achieve what he went to Paris to achieve. I want to ask you kind of what you thought of his performance, and then also what his any inkling into his future. Can we expect to see him again? Because I know he mentioned he's been approached by NFL teams in the past. So anything in regards to that?
Yeah, I think it's for me it's early to make any comments or guess what Mason's concrete plans are. I know he's a great competitor, and I know I spoke to him briefly there, but shortly after the match, just I know he is capable of being the best in the world. He was super prepared. I think there were a few little things in that match that started to he just got a little unclear in a couple moments, technically and tactically. Um, against a good opponent. I mean, the guy was a silver medalist and had beat the Olympic champ before. He's definitely a good opponent. I think Mason he's right in the hunt to win gold this year, and I reminded him that he's still for the sport at this level. He is really young, and he's got incredible opportunity ahead of him, and there's a lot of opportunity for gold medals ahead of him. And obviously, we hope he continues to want to train and compete at the highest level. And like I said, we really believe in him, and um, we know that he's going to have a lot of gold medal opportunities, in this next Olympic cycle at the World Championships and in LA. So that's sort of our hope, but usually we give these guys a little time to sort of get their feet back on the ground, get away from the sport mentally a little bit, and then we'll start having some debrief meetings with them, evaluation meetings with them, and start talking about the future.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I hope we do see him again. But Kevin, go ahead. I know you had a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Sean. First, I just wanted to say I know I actually wrestled high school with someone that you're familiar with, Brian Aparo.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
Yeah, he was on my
BA,
varsity team. Yeah, he said
great
BA,
guy.
and he
Yeah,
was
great guy.
he said that without getting into too many details, that the recruiting trip for him was pretty epic. Um, he said that was a good time, and he mentioned he just wanted to say hello to you, and I thought that was pretty neat that he knew you. I wasn't sure if he was the same time as you, but I think he was just coming in as you were out. Um,
Yeah, we had a little overlap, and I've always sort of stayed in touch with him. And when I was running my club, and he had developed that mat mopping system company, I was utilizing all his products. So, yeah, go BA's a great guy.
Very cool. Very cool. I was just wondering, when it comes to, with all the NIL stuff and everything the way things are, do you find yourself sometimes being more of like feeling like more like a CEO of a company rather than like a coach at times, or how do you balance all the hats that it seems to take to coach in college these days?
Well, it's changed significantly, even since I took over at Michigan as the head coach 6 years ago. I mean, I sort of joke all the time that really, I feel like there's been significant, almost unprecedented change in college athletics and specifically in wrestling, which we're involved in. But since I took over, I had one sort of normal season. Then we went right into COVID, and then we went right into the transfer portal, and then right into NIL, and now we have all these new changes coming down the pipe. So I would say the biggest thing as a leader is, you've had to be ready to have some flexibility and start thinking creatively about what all this means as all these changes keep kind of landing on our desks. And that's just something that I think great leaders have a capacity for. Kind of seeing the landscape, finding solutions, being creative, and putting the best system in place. To operate and perform at the highest level, giving all these new rules, all these new circumstances, and all this new opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean, I mean, and the recent news with Anthony Holman, the VP of NCAA Championships, saying that that schools who participate in a profit sharing will not wrestle in the same NCAA tournament as the schools who do not. Is this real, and do you think that's something that could really happen?
It's just so hard to say. I've been involved in a few meetings. The most recent one I was involved in with my colleagues here at Michigan and the other head coaches. But that was about 2 or 3 days before the Olympic Games started. I was on a meeting while I was over in Paris. But there's so much uncertainty still about the actual decision and when all the decisions that are going to affect each one of our sports and how we operate. There's so many small things and decisions that actually have to be made. I think that's the most difficult part and challenging part, is that as far as we are into this next year's recruiting class, we don't have answers for all these things yet. So I think
Sure.
it's so early, and so there's just not enough clear information yet on how the NCAA is going to handle all these changes, especially for sport by sport.
Let me ask you, if you had a pie chart from your first year at Michigan as head coach up until now, and the pie chart consisted of the percentage of your time that you spend coaching and the percentage of time that you spend recruiting, has that pie chart stayed the same, or has that pie chart changed? And what would you say the percentage of time is that you spend in recruiting now?
It's changed quite a bit since I first started. I would say it's shifted at least. It's increased. I would say it's increased by at least 40-50%, just because we sort of you sort of start recruiting these guys as you know at the end of their sophomore year. You sort of have a list, and you've identified a lot of the kids you're looking for already, but then you can start contacting them on June 15th, and then the recruiting process moves pretty fast. But even after you start getting commitments, you have to really continue to recruit, because they don't sign until the fall of their senior year. So there's just a lot more recruiting, a lot more continual recruiting that goes on. the nature of the visits have changed a lot with the rules that came out last year. We can actually pay for more family members to fly and sort of expand the recruiting opportunities with the families. I think some of these are really good. Some of these are really good changes. I mean, because at the end of the day, that recruiting piece is so important, and getting the right kids is so important, and also making sure that in that recruiting process, the kids really are able to connect to make sure that your university is the right place for them. Because finding out that there's a mistake or it's not the right fit a year or two later, once you're into the actual process of having them on your roster, is a lot more challenging and unfortunate. So getting it right and trying to get it right as early as we have to start with these guys, I think, is sort of the challenge, and that's why I actually enjoy recruiting. I think part of that's because I ran that club and worked with that age group so much for over a decade before I came back to coach at Michigan. But I really enjoy the kids in that age group. I really enjoy getting to know their families, and and it's just clear though that it's become more and more important to to get that part right.
What is it? What would you say is like the number one thing that you're looking for in a recruit? And then when you find that recruit, what is your elevator speech for Michigan?
Well, from a recruiting standpoint, we're trying to target the top performers, and kids that are obviously competing for state titles, national titles, and really from a cadet and junior age group competing for world championships and being on those U.S. world teams competing for gold medals. Guys that have the aspiration to do that at the senior level as well. But I'd say, one of the other criteria for us at Michigan is we're looking for kids that, academically are also driven, have performed well academically, can compete and really prosper here at Michigan academically, and guys that really also value getting that kind of degree to sort of set themselves up for whatever they want to do after wrestling. If they decide to get out of wrestling, they don't want to coach, that professionally they're really driven and want to be at a place where they can, really have a good network around them, and ultimately, really, we're seeking high impact individuals with outstanding character, kids who are really passionate about wrestling and committed to living a championship lifestyle, and that's sort of reflective of the guys we have on our team, our club guys. We're pretty intentional about the club guys that we have here surrounding our college program. Just because they are sort of additional leaders and mentors, in that wrestling room. So, those are the kind of kids we're really looking for and the kind of families we're looking for. But the academics definitely play another part in it for us.
Yeah,
I'm a pretty big Cornell fan, and it broke my heart when Cardenas had to leave because of the Ivy League awesome rules. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm glad that he went to Michigan. I really am, and I'm happy for him. But I was just wondering, what is it about him that made you want to bring him in? And do you find it with transfers that you're pretty much looking for those same characteristics that you are when you're recruiting people from high school, or is it like more significant performance based, or what do you think those aspects are?
Yeah, it's all of it. I mean, I think with the transfers, and especially for us here at Michigan over the last few years, there's sort of been a pattern of, Ivy Leagues and high academic institution grad transfers who, we have really attractive graduate school programs, really valuable graduate school degrees here at Michigan. So those kids that are, have been more academically driven and, are more professional and career driven for after wrestling. This has been an incredible opportunity for them. And we find that those kids, are a great fit here. Because they are driven that way. They definitely, we've had some guys with incredible character, really just passionate guys about living a championship lifestyle. And those guys are a great fit here. And Jacob was no different, as I got to know him and through that recruiting process. And, obviously, the circumstances were different at Cornell, that it wasn't an option for him to stay there and continue to wrestle. So those are a little cleaner recruitment scenarios. And with Kellen Russell, somebody that was a Michigan guy that I was coaching, and he coached with us on our staff. I was able to talk with Kellen quite a bit just about Jacob, and obviously watching his wrestling, he's a great competitor, great wrestler. He also has that same burning desire, beyond just winning NCAA titles, to compete internationally. And he's on his third U23 world team. Getting excited to compete and going over to Albania in October. So he's just, as I've gotten to know him here, he's been here just a little while, and I've been gone part of that, but so far what I've seen of him is everything we liked about him and everything you heard about him. Just really a straight up worker and great leader in the room.
That's awesome.
I have to ask you this because we're all over social media and we see all these posts all the time. Rumors, $500,000 being offered to this, $1 million being offered. Now, you don't have to answer this, but in general, are those numbers true?
To be honest, it's hard to say. I tend to believe probably not, because I've seen a lot of speculation and a lot of information out there about things we've done here at Michigan that are not accurate. So it leads me to believe that a lot of the stuff that's out there is not overly accurate, or it's inflated. And it's just so hard to know because, with social media, anybody can throw out anything they want. My experience is that a lot of this stuff seems to be heavily inflated, because I hear certain numbers, and then I hear numbers that are not even close to that from other other people that I speak with. So it's so hard to know. And that's just another thing. And some of us coaches, I mean, we have conversations about these things and sort of compare some of these notes, and it's sort of, I think what we're all feeling is that there's just not a lot of certainty in how clear some of those numbers really are, and how much of it also is, how much of it also can be sort of fall into the category of tuition and cost to actually attend a school versus just straight NIL money that's going into somebody's pocket. So it's a little blurry.
Are you pretty engaged with social media in general?
I'd probably say I do about I for the recruits I enjoy it, and for our guys I sort of enjoy it, but I'd say I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I don't do a lot. I probably do about as much as I can to be have a relevant presence for our university and for the capacity of my job, but I don't spend a tremendous amount of time on it, and I'm definitely not a guy that has a social media plan every day or every week or every month. Most of my time is on the phone. I like to connect with people. I like the relationship part of it, and that keeps me pretty busy between coaching, recruiting, fundraising, and just talking with a lot of the special people that are surrounding our program and supporting our program. I enjoy the relationship part more than I do my cell phone.
Yeah, well, hey, you're on with us now, and we appreciate it. I do have to ask you, what are your thoughts on the David Taylor hire to Oklahoma State? Did that surprise you at all?
Nothing surprises me anymore, to be honest. Nothing really surprised me anymore, to be honest. I mean, it was a quick turnaround. It was right after the Olympics. I'd say the timing of it, how the speed it happened with was probably more surprising to me than the fact that it actually happened. I'm not, again, it's one of those scenarios. It's not real clear to me on how much of the financial part is accurate, but if it is, if all that's accurate, then my feeling on it is that's great for wrestling. It's anytime we have bigger commitments financially to support programs here and to support coaching staffs, and it's anytime we get that kind of commitment, that kind of money injected into our sport, it's a great thing.
I agree.
What, Sean? What do you think puts you more on edge? Watching your guys in a close match, or sitting in the stands and watching your daughter play field hockey? for Michigan.
Well, I learned pretty quick to take my own advice and just be a dad sitting in the stands and don't say a word.
Right.
So I've gotten pretty comfortable just doing that. Um, and I do love. I try to make as many games as I can, and I really enjoy. Feel like he's definitely the sport I really enjoy right after wrestling. But um, I don't know. I'd say I get excited about all that. I love all
Yeah.
those different moments. That part of it's not as unsettling. It's harder for me, I'd say, when you know, there's certain times as coaching staff, we sort of, we have to split up and we have to go to different tournaments. Some guys are back recruiting, and sometimes we're at maybe at trials, or we're at, the guys are somewhere in the fall, or and I'm back here recruiting or running the practices. And if I'm sitting on my iPad trying to watch these matches, then that's when I start to feel a little twisted, because
Yeah.
I'm not seeing everything I'm used to seeing. Like, I'm used to, I can walk in and see the body language, and I can see before they're stepping on the mat, and I know where they're at. I know, you know, and I feel confident. But when I don't see any of those things leading up to it, and I'm trying to watch it through the iPad, then it's a little more unnerving for me.
That's
Yeah.
great. I real quick, one last thing. I read about your and it was crazy, the story, the MMA fight, and I'm reading about it, and I'm seeing like you were just coming off an injury. You fly down there. They move the weight from like 170 to 185. They say that there's going to be no gloves now, and you thought you were wrestling just like a regular judo, or not wrestling, fighting a judo guy, and then it ends up being Silva. And I mean, and I think in an interview you said he was like all like oiled up, so you couldn't really grip him.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think? Do you think like that was almost? Do you think that was like a sign with all that stuff going wrong, that this was just get out of this MMA and just keep on the wrestling path?
100%. Well, my intention was to stay on the my intention was to stay on the wrestling path, but there was, back then in that year, there was so little money in wrestling, and I was an assistant at Wisconsin, and I think we were still on the restricted earning salary, so it was, your salary was limited to $12,000, and you could only make $4,000 at summer camp, so you were limited to $16,000 a year salary, and there was no
Oh,
RTC support, nothing like that.
wow.
So I was getting a little bit of a monthly stipend, like I think it was like $500 a month extra from Foxcatcher, and some of the wrestlers were starting to go into the MMA heavily, and this was right after '96. More of those guys started jumping in, and Rico
Right.
Ciparelli and his brother called me with this opportunity down in Brazil, and they literally, I just like only been on the mat for a couple of weeks drilling after an ACL reconstruction, and I was starting to get ready for the Sunkiss tournament, which was always in October. And that was my primary focus. And they told me, it's like, yeah, this, jiu-jitsu guy, these guys, wrestlers, all you got to do is watch out for, triangle choke, armbar, we'll come in and, we'll work on this stuff for a week, and then we'll go down. Cause it was literally like 2 weeks notice, like no notice, no training. And,
Oh,
and it was $10,000. So like, I'm like, gee whiz, I could really like double my salary here, and life could be a little easier for the next year or two. Um,
absolutely.
and I enjoyed watching MMA, but it wasn't like I was thinking about converting to MMA and give up wrestling. At the time, I was in sort of my prime, and wrestling really well before that ACL injury. So, but going down there, and then just, the guy that set the thing up and promoted the whole thing was also the ref. And then that's when all the stuff started to change, and the guy's all oiled up. So as soon as I
Oh
felt him,
man.
well, as soon as I saw him in his stance, I'm like, this guy's not jujitsu. And then, and
Yeah.
then, and then, and then, then all the punches started flying. I'm like, wow, this guy's a pretty good striker for a jujitsu guy. And then I got my hands on, this is all happening in like 15 seconds. I get my hands on him, and I could feel how oiled up his neck was. I was trying to get a hold of his head to shoot a double on him. And that's all I could
Right.
think about. Like, I got to get this guy down, and I got to do it fast. Because it was clear his level of striking was much higher than mine, and but he was so oiled up, and the guy obviously was just he had a great MMA career, and just one of the legends out of the gates
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
So it's always a great story when I'm, when people start talking about MMA. Or I've actually, one time I was sitting in a gym lifting on the road, and there were some guys around me, and there was an MMA on. It was Vanderlei fighting, and these guys were talking. They're like, "Can you imagine being in a cage with Vanderlei Silva fighting him?" I was sitting there shaking my head, just inside laughing, like, "Yeah, I can actually imagine it."
Yeah, I've been
But
there. That's
yeah,
awesome.
but
That is
it was
crazy.
so corrupt back then. That was what I'm like. Oh, I'm never getting involved with that. It was so corrupt. There was no honor in terms of like just the arrangement of it, and we just like you don't think about those things because in wrestling, everything we do, and especially in the United States, is really about the honor of the win and having the right weight class, making weight, not being oiled up, like So that was an eye opener for me.
Yeah, you got to have regulations and stuff when you're getting your head pounded and you're fighting someone else. I mean, you got to have
Yeah,
something there.
yeah.
Um,
So
Sean, I got to ask you about a couple people here before we
yeah,
let you go. Okay. Are you friends with Tom Brands?
I know Tom. We know each other well. I'd say we're obviously we're colleagues. We're not I don't know about all of us, too many of us being like, I wouldn't consider him in the same pool as like Josh Sorella being my friend or Kevin Jackson being my friend. But I've known Tom and his brother for a long time. I spent some time when I was at Wisconsin training down in Iowa quite a bit with Bart Chelsvig. And, so I got a lot of respect for those guys. I've known them for a long time.
Okay. What thoughts on Kale Sanderson?
Kale is I like Kale. I've gotten to know Kale more as I've been in a coaching role here at Michigan. He would come around and recruit some of my guys when I was running my club. Um, I've always liked his just sort of his even keel demeanor, and I think he's got a good thought process wrapped around competition and wrapped around this sport. I got to know him a little more as I've been coaching in this role as head coach, especially when COVID hit. We did that first televised sort of match, that duel down at Penn State. He called me and sort of brought that up, and I think back about that. I really appreciated that he reached out to me with our club and sort of we put that together, and that was something new, sort of in a rough time, for the sport and rough time for our athletes during COVID. So, I got a lot of respect for Kale, and I used to coach Jimmy Kennedy when he was younger, and then Jimmy was at Michigan for a while, and I know when Jimmy was at Penn State, they took really good care of him, and that kind of stuff's important to me. So I got nothing but respect for Kale.
Okay. Kevin, you want to chime in quick?
yeah, real quick,
It,
you mentioned Josh. I'm a stats guy, and I went down a pretty deep rabbit hole last night on Michigan, and I was just wondering, does it ever come up that your career record is 125 and 21, and his is 124 and 21?
no, I didn't know that. I,
Well,
I
now
didn't
you
know
do.
that. I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah, I always go back to those things, and I try to figure out, because there was a certain point they didn't really count your redshirt matches, and then later they started counting redshirt matches, and I'm not sure why that was, because we actually had so
Right.
many more matches than I'd say these guys the last 20 years, and certainly the last decade. I had some years, I want to say I had like 45, 50 matches. Especially my freshman year. It was a year I think I had like 50, 53 matches.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's funny. I didn't know that stat. I didn't know that.
Well, Sean, listen, I have some other good news. We have some training partners that are ready to roll around with Paris and Kuhn. I know you're coaching them. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Nowak brothers? They're big fans of
Uh,
BEG wrestling.
I know them. I know them well, and they are definitely high quality training partners. I think they both combined have at least 20 seconds in them, and
20 seconds. Wow,
yeah,
that's good news because Marty, I told Marty I'm coming out there to body him up. So
yeah.
if I only got to last 25 seconds,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a combined 20 seconds if it's tag team. I mean,
Yeah.
those guys.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think they've been training as hard as they used to.
Wow. Well, Marty calls in all the time. I'm sure he's going to have something to say about that. But in addition to that, they also, Marty has something from us to give to you. I know you have a lot of trophies in your trophy cabinet, and I wanted to ask you which one is the most meaningful. But before I do that, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you were actually awarded the BEG Wrestling's 2023 Most Valuable Purchaser Award
All
for
right.
the season for the team. Now, unfortunately, you're not even
Yeah.
close to winning this year.
Yeah.
So,
No, you did not repeat.
what's going on? In fact, Tom Brands looks like he might run away with this year. But where do you have room in your trophy cabinet for that one?
Hey, we always have room for more trophies, guys. Always have
Okay.
room for more trophies. Absolutely.
While we're on one other quick question. I know that you were one of the finalists for the men's freestyle Olympic coaching position before they hired Bill Zadek. Is that something that you would ever consider in the future if that opportunity opened up again?
You know, coaching here at Michigan that'll be my last, I'd say full-time coaching position. I love Michigan. I love being here. I love the support we get. I love what we're building here. So, when I finish coaching here at Michigan, I'll stay involved in wrestling in some capacity. It might be, freestyle. It might be on the fundraising side also. There's some different areas that I think would be really exciting when I'm done being the head coach here at Michigan. But being the national team coach, I don't think so. I think that the nature of that's changed so much with the RTCs and the fact that most of the guys on the national team are really just at a college training with their college coaches and their RTC, and there isn't a lot of I really respect Bill. I like Bill a lot. I know he tries to get around and put time in the guys, and he's on a lot of these trips. But I'm a guy that I love to be in the mat room on a daily basis. As much as I possibly can. It's a little different. I'd say I do it less now than I would actually like to. But that's really what I love to do. And when I eventually at some point when I stop as head coach here at Michigan, that's probably what I'll continue to do is have some small mat room where I continue to really work with a small group of kids and do some heavy freestyle and also try to make a financial impact on the sport.
Okay, Michigan lifer, unlike fellow alum Harbaugh, right? Harbaugh, did you know Harbaugh?
He's a lifer. He's a lifer.
Yeah, yeah. He
He's
bleeds
probably
blue.
getting paid for life.
He's a Michigan guy through and through.
Yes, he is. Hey, Sean, I don't know if you had more time. I did want to kind of dive into and ask you about the School of Overtime Wrestling that you started and kind of ran from, 2001 to 2014. And Kevin and I, when talking before this interview, were kind of discussing the significance of the impact that we believe that has had in the state of Illinois. And we believe you're seeing the fruits of this now at our Olympics now.
Still.
But really, before then, wrestling really wasn't on the map in Illinois. And is there anything you kind of wanted to touch on? We just kind of wanted to mention it because to show recognition for what we believe was the influence that had on the sport.
No, I appreciate that. It's when I moved back to Illinois in 2000, the fall of 2000, that was my intention was to start a wrestling academy in Chicago suburbs where I grew up. What I didn't know at the time is that Illinois had been severely fractured between the high school coaches, sort of freestyle and Greco Federation, and the IKWF Kids Federation. And there was a big sort of fracture in the state between those two federations. It was also tied in with USA Wrestling. Prior to my moving back, there was a significant lawsuit that sort of forced USA Wrestling to basically move to one organization. There couldn't be two USA Wrestling organizations in the state, and that's how it was set up. So it sort of forced them into one organization, which was the IKWF. And I don't know all the details of sort of how that played out, but when I got back to the state, it was really just sort of in disarray in terms of the freestyle and Greco and the high school kids were different divisions, and it was just the participation for the state freestyle and Greco tournament was really low. The participation going to Fargo was really low, and it was not like it was when I was in high school. When I was in high school, Illinois was one of the top 5 states year in year out with freestyle and
Mm-hmm.
Greco. We didn't have duels that I remember back then, or at least if we did, I was never involved in them. I don't think they existed. But the junior nationals, like Illinois, was always a team that was competing for the title in freestyle and Greco. So when I moved back, I think I started something that really hadn't really been done. It hadn't been done in the state of Illinois, and I think it sort of neutralized a lot of things because I was not trying to pick sides. I was really just there to help kids that were really motivated and dedicated, and help them train. I wasn't making it a team in the state where I was trying to compete with the other kids clubs or compete with the high school coaches. I mean, I was literally just there to supplement training and help kids be as great as they could possibly be. And and then I started to get involved because obviously some of those kids we were training were going to compete in these big events, and I wanted to be able to help coach and help the state. So I started to get more involved with as the board was sort of forming in the state, Illinois USA Wrestling. As that board was starting to form, I started to build some relationships with the people involved on the board, so I could hopefully, just help in any capacity I could, just develop sort of the training camps and the plans of how to organize some of the training aspects, not necessarily the federation, but a lot of the training aspects, and start to attract the best kids around the state to come together and compete for Illinois at the duels and for Fargo. And I think we successfully over those first couple of years we did that, and then we started to have success, and we started to win some of those duels, and we started to win Fargo, and then that momentum just kept building, and all the kids took a ton of pride in being part of those teams and helping Illinois win. And it's just sort of continued to grow. And, I follow it every year, and it's always exciting for me to see. It's a lot of the same coaches. We had unbelievable coaches in the state of Illinois, just a lot of depth in coaching, a lot of depth in talent in the wrestlers, and a lot of really committed people involved in the sport. So it's always fun for me to see that continued success in Illinois. And obviously we continue to recruit there. So I'm always watching it close.
Yeah, and seeing the fruits
Don't
of the labor now. Kevin, go ahead.
don't ever in a forum not mention Illinois in the top 5 as best wrestling states, because you will get a handful of Illinois people that will go to battle for that.
Yeah, as they
That I
should.
know. They
As
are.
they
I know
should.
they are proud people, but I mean, amazing. What you did was unbelievable, and it's kind of like pioneers of like what Askren's been doing. And man, if we could get the whole country to just somehow get these clubs, strong clubs like this, all around the country, it would just make wrestling so much stronger. I mean, what we were talking about, what you did and what we saw there was just outstanding. So
Yeah,
pretty
thank you.
incredible.
It was so much fun. I had such a good time. That part of my career, and even just building that, that was super enjoyable. And I still really enjoy running into a lot of the kids we coach. One of my last guys that was in the club was Joe Rao, and I got to see him at the Olympics, and
Oh, wow.
and there's still a few guys that are still way back, because my last year actually there was July 2011. That's when I came to Michigan, and Kerry Bowman's and Ed Geezy, they kept running it for a few years after I left. But yeah, just a really special part of my coaching career that was different than college. But I really, with all the change that we've had here in college sports since I've been back and been the head coach, I think my ability to understand business and build and create has really helped me in this role now.
Yeah, no, it certainly is evolving. Sean, I know you have a dinner to get to.
Yeah,
I don't want to keep you too long. I do want to say I greatly appreciate you coming on here and also accepting our award in good, kind spirit. Marty Nowak has it for you. I hope he does deliver it to you someday. And hey, I'd love to have you back, maybe sometime right before the season starts or anytime in the future. But Sean, you've been great, and I tell you what, the same takeaway as after I interviewed Mason. I'm a big fan now. I am a big fan.
Yeah.
You know, I'm wearing my Michigan yellow here.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, because I was sort of tipped off. You guys are sort of, big Penn State fans, and it's hey, listen, it's making more sense now
No.
because I didn't hear, the biggest purchaser award. I didn't know that was such a thing until you guys sort of told me, and I do feel honored that I'm getting this trophy, but I heard you guys mention Tom Brands, but I haven't heard you mention Kale. And now it's adding up because I know you guys are, sort of Penn State fans, which I understand. And,
Well,
but he does have the second best haircut in the Big Ten, unfortunately. He's got some work to do. He's
hey,
got some work to do. And that
but
usually boils down to the barber. I got the best barber. So, but
hey,
we'll
that is
definitely
where it's at.
reconnect. You guys keep doing great things. I appreciate it.
Hey, we
Thank you so
appreciate it,
much.
Sean. Thank you.
Enjoy your
Absolutely look
dinner.
forward to it. And best of luck this season. Let's go
Thank you.
Wolverines, baby.
Go Blue.
Go Blue. All right. Thank you, Sean.